The year was 2089. Earth had just taken its first real steps into the stars. For decades, humans had explored their own solar system, building bases on the Moon and Mars. But last year, everything changed. The new quantum drive, built after 50 years of research, had finally worked. The ship Horizon jumped to Alpha Centauri and returned safely. Humanity was ready to meet the galaxy, or so they thought. On a cool Monday morning in October, strange lights appeared in the sky above major cities worldwide. Greg Hoffman looked up from his coffee at the outdoor cafe in Washington, D.C. when people around him started pointing and gasping. In the clear blue sky hung a massive ship at least a mile long, its surface shining like polished chrome in the morning sun. "Sir, you need to come in now," said the voice in his earpiece. Greg touched the small device, his heart racing. "This is Hoffman. What's happening?" he asked, already moving toward his car. "First contact, sir. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The President needs all United Nations Space Command personnel now." Greg was 34 with short brown hair and serious eyes. As a diplomatic officer with the UNSC, he had trained for this day. 10 years of studying theoretical alien cultures and communication protocols were about to be tested. He just never expected it to happen so soon. Within hours, similar ships appeared over Beijing, Moscow, New Delhi, and 20 other major cities. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council, a union of 17 advanced species that governed most of the known galaxy. They spoke perfect English and every other human language, claiming they had studied Earth for years. "They've been watching us?" Admiral Susan Wright asked during the emergency meeting at UNSC headquarters beneath the Pentagon. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "For how long?" "They say decades," replied the UNSC director. "But they only decided to contact us after the Horizon mission. They claim they wait until species develop interstellar travel capabilities before making contact." Admiral Wright frowned. "I don't like it. Why wait until now? Why not contact us years ago?" Greg sat quietly, reviewing the alien transmission on his tablet. Something about their message bothered him. They were too friendly, too eager to share technology. In his studies of human history, advanced civilizations rarely approached less developed ones with pure goodwill. "Admiral," Greg said, speaking up for the first time, "I think we should be cautious. They're offering too much too quickly." Wright nodded, but the defense secretary waved his hand dismissively. "They're offering us technology that could solve climate change, end poverty, cure diseases. We'd be fools to reject their friendship based on paranoia." 3 days later, the council requested a human delegation visit their command ship in orbit near the Moon. Greg was selected as part of the 8-person team, along with scientists, military officers, and politicians. Admiral Wright would remain on Earth as their contact. The night before departure, Wright called Greg to her office. "I don't trust them," she said bluntly, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey and handing one to Greg. 800 years of silence from the stars, and suddenly they're at our doorstep offering gifts? Something isn't right. The whiskey burned Greg's throat as he nodded. "I feel the same way, but the world wants this. People are celebrating in the streets." "People see what they want to see," Wright said. "I want you to take this." She handed Greg a small black device the size of a coin. "It's a quantum transmitter, developed from the drive technology. If anything goes wrong, press the center 3 times. It will send a message directly to me, bypassing all normal communications." Greg slipped it into his pocket. "Let's hope I don't need it." The next day, a sleek shuttle carried the human delegation to the massive council station orbiting beyond the Moon. Greg stared out the viewport as they approached. The station was enormous, a spinning wheel of metal and light, at least 10 miles across. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Helen Ross, the team's xenobiologist. "Yes," Greg agreed, though he couldn't shake his unease. They docked at the station, greeted by aliens of different species. Their guide, who called himself Ambassador Zorn, looked almost human except for his blue-tinted skin and slightly larger eyes. He led them through corridors filled with technology beyond human understanding. "The Council has 17 member species," Zorn explained as they walked. We have governed the galaxy peacefully for over 50,000 years. And now, humanity may join us. Greg studied the other aliens they passed. Some had multiple limbs, others moved on something like treads. One floated above the ground, its body glowing faintly. Despite their differences, Greg noticed something odd. They all had the same cold, calculating look in their eyes when they glanced at the humans. That evening, the council hosted what they called a harmony dinner to welcome Earth's representatives. The human delegation sat around a large circular table in a dome-shaped room with a view of Earth hanging like a blue jewel in the blackness of space. High Commissioner Zelban, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms, stood to make a speech. Today marks the beginning of humanity's ascension. No longer will you struggle alone on your single world. The council welcomes you to the stars. Everyone applauded. Servers brought in strange-looking food on floating platters. Greg noticed the aliens weren't eating the same dishes. A special meal prepared to match human biology, Zorn explained, seeing Greg's questioning look. As they ate, Greg felt increasingly uncomfortable. The conversation seemed rehearsed, as if the aliens were following a script. When he asked more detailed questions about the council's history or how they governed, Zorn smoothly changed the subject. During the dessert course, Greg noticed a faint hissing sound. At first he thought it was part of the station's air system. Then he saw a thin mist beginning to fill the room near the floor. "Does anyone else hear that?" he asked, standing suddenly. The other humans looked confused, but Greg saw the aliens exchange glances. Without warning, several council members pulled breathing masks from beneath their robes and quickly placed them over their faces. "It's a trap," Greg shouted, reaching for the quantum transmitter in his pocket. Too late. The gas rose quickly, and the humans began coughing and collapsing. Greg pressed the transmitter 3 times before his legs gave out. As he fell to the floor, he saw Ambassador Zorn standing over him, eyes cold and calculating behind his mask. "You were correct to be suspicious, Mr. Hoffman," Zorn said calmly, "but it makes no difference now." Greg's vision blurred as consciousness slipped away. His last thought before blackness took him was that Admiral Wright had been right all along. Back on Earth, Wright received the quantum signal and immediately ordered defense systems to high alert. But it was already too late. All communication with the delegation suddenly ceased. Minutes later, massive energy signatures appeared in orbit as a Galactic Council armada decloaked, hundreds of warships appearing out of nowhere. The invasion of Earth had begun. The alien ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like silent predators. Their weapons fired pulses of blue energy that didn't destroy buildings, but made all electronics die instantly. Military bases went dark first, then airports, power plants, and communication centers. Natalie Reeves stood on the roof of her apartment building in Detroit, watching the alien ships glide between skyscrapers. She was 29, with curly red hair pulled back in a ponytail, and worked as an electrical engineer at the city's power plant. The plant had gone dead 2 hours ago, and now the entire city was dark except for fires burning in some neighborhoods. "They're moving in a pattern," she said, pointing as another sleek ship passed overhead. "They're not random." Her neighbor Paul Garcia stood beside her, his face grim in the fading light. Paul was in his mid-30s, a former Marine with broad shoulders, and a scar along his jaw from fighting in the resource wars 5 years earlier. "They're not destroying anything," Natalie whispered, her breath making small clouds in the cold air. "They're just taking over." Paul gripped the rooftop railing tightly, his knuckles turning white. "That's because they want the planet intact. We're just in the way." Below them, people ran through the streets in panic. Some were looting stores while others tried to flee the city in cars that wouldn't start. Police sirens had stopped hours ago when their vehicles died. "We should get supplies," Paul said, turning away from the view. "Food, water, anything useful. Once they secure the city, they'll start rounding people up." "How do you know?" Natalie asked. Paul's face darkened. "Because it's what I would do." By the next morning, alien troops walked the streets of every major city on Earth. They weren't like their ships. These aliens stood 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like polished metal. They carried weapons that looked like spears, but fired the same blue energy that disabled all technology. The human military fought back hard. Fighter jets launched before their bases were hit. Tanks rolled out of hidden bunkers, and soldiers with basic weapons attacked alien positions. But it was useless. The alien armor couldn't be pierced by bullets, and their ships shot down anything that flew. On the third day, Earth's government surrendered. The President of the United States gave a speech through loudspeakers mounted on alien vehicles, his voice shaking as he urged people to cooperate. The Galactic Council has assured us that humanity will be given a place among their civilization, he said. Resistance will only bring more suffering. But Natalie didn't believe it. From her hiding place in an abandoned subway tunnel with Paul and 20 other survivors, she watched on a hand-cranked radio as local officials began working with the aliens. They promised that humans would become junior members of the council, given technology and knowledge in exchange for obedience. They're lying, Paul said, cleaning his old service pistol, though he knew it was useless against the invaders. No advanced species crosses the stars just to make friends. In space, 1,000 miles above the chaos on Earth, Greg Hoffman woke up in a small cell aboard the council flagship. His head throbbed with pain, and when he reached up, he felt something metal embedded behind his right ear. "What the?" he whispered, fingers exploring the small disc attached to his skin. "Translator implant," said a voice from the corridor, outside his cell. "So you can understand all council languages." Greg looked up to see an alien standing beyond the energy field that sealed his cell. It looked similar to Ambassador Zorn, but with darker blue skin. "Why am I alive?" Greg asked, sitting up slowly. "You are a diplomatic officer. Your knowledge of Earth's governance will be useful during the transition." Greg's mind raced, trying to piece together what had happened after he lost consciousness. At the dinner. "What transition? What are you doing to Earth?" The alien simply stared at him with those cold eyes, then walked away without answering. For what seemed like days, Greg lay in his cell with nothing to do but worry about Earth. Had Admiral Wright received his message? Had Earth's defenses activated? In time? Eventually, hunger and thirst forced him to eat the strange food they provided, though he suspected it was drugged. One night, while pretending to sleep, Greg overheard two aliens talking outside his cell. Through the translator implant, he could understand every word. "Species 4729 shows abnormal cognitive development patterns," said a clinical voice. "The probability of human advancement to Class 5 technology within the next century is 87.3%. Following protocol, all but a controlled population will be placed in preservation stasis." "How many will be preserved in active state?" asked another voice. 1 billion for labor and research. The remaining 6 billion will enter the preservation chambers. The biological materials harvested from the population will advance our medical sciences significantly. The council made the correct decision to intervene before they developed. Further, Greg felt sick as he realized the truth. Earth had never been invaded for conquest. Humanity was being harvested and would be nearly wiped out, with only small populations kept as workers or test subjects. 2 days later, Greg got his chance to escape. The energy field flickered briefly during what he guessed was a shift change. Using skills from his military training before he became a diplomat, Greg slipped out and moved silently through the corridors of the alien ship. He found the detention block where they kept the other humans from the delegation. Most cells contained only bodies, crew members who had fought back and been killed. But in one he found Dr. Olivia Martinez alive, the xenobiologist from their team. Olivia was small, with short black hair and intelligent eyes that lit up when she saw Greg. "Thank God," she whispered as he disabled the energy field. "I thought I was the only one left." "We need to get off this ship," Greg said. "I know what they're planning for Earth." Together, they navigated through the massive ship, using Olivia's scientific knowledge of alien biology to avoid detection. They reached a hangar bay filled with small shuttlecraft. "Can you fly one of these?" Olivia asked, eyeing the strange controls. Greg shook his head. "No, but I can try. We don't have a choice." As alarms began to sound, they boarded a shuttle and figured out the starter sequence. The ship lurched into space just as security forces rushed into the hangar. Through the viewport, Greg saw Earth below, beautiful and blue, with alien ships surrounding it like vultures. "We have to warn them," he said, steering toward the planet. "We have to tell them the truth about the Council's plans." As they descended, through the atmosphere, dodging pursuit ships, Greg wondered if there was still a resistance left to warn, or if Earth had already fallen completely under alien control. 5 years passed under alien rule. The world had changed completely. Massive silver domes now stood in every major city, preservation facilities, the aliens called them. Inside these domes, over 6 billion humans lay frozen in stasis chambers, officially for their protection and eventual integration into galactic society. Only about 1 billion humans remained free, working as laborers, servants, and test subjects. The Council maintained the fiction that humanity was being prepared for galactic citizenship, but most people now knew the truth. Deep in the mountains of what was once Montana, a resistance base operated from an old military bunker built during the Cold War. The base was hidden beneath a fake mining operation, protected by technology that scrambled alien sensors. Inside the main command room, Admiral Susan Wright studied a holographic map showing alien troop movements across North America. At 57, her hair had turned completely gray, and new lines marked her face, but her eyes burned with the same determination. "They're moving the stasis chambers from Chicago to their new processing center in Utah," she said, pointing to red dots, moving across the map. "That gives us a chance to hit the convoy." Greg Hoffman stood beside her, now her second in command. The past 5 years had hardened him. A scar ran across his left cheek, where an alien weapon had nearly killed him during a raid 2 years ago. "If we hit the convoy, we risk damaging the chambers," Greg said. "There are thousands of people in stasis inside." "We're not going to attack the chambers," Wright replied. "We're going after the escort ships. Dr. Martinez has something to show us that might help." Dr. Olivia Martinez entered the room carrying a small metal box. After escaping the alien flagship with Greg, she had become the Resistance's chief science officer. Her work with captured alien technology had provided their biggest advantages. "I've finally figured out how their neural disruptors work," she said, opening the box to reveal what looked like a small silver gun. "And more importantly, I've modified this one to work on Council species." The 20 Resistance officers gathered around the table murmured with excitement. Alien neural disruptors had been used to subdue humans during the invasion. A single shot could knock a person unconscious without lasting harm. Until now, the Resistance had no similar weapon to use against the aliens. "How many do we have?" Wright asked. "Just 5 so far," Olivia answered. "But I can make more if we can capture their manufacturing facility in Denver." Kevin Daniels, a skinny man with thick glasses who had been a video game developer before the invasion, raised his hand. "I have something to contribute too." Kevin was the Resistance's best hacker. He had taught himself to understand and manipulate alien computer systems, a feat the Council had believed impossible for humans. "Their security is actually pretty simple once you understand it," he explained while typing on a hybrid console of human and alien design. The screen filled with strange symbols. They've never had to defend against internal threats before. Their entire civilization is built on species consensus. "What did you find, Kevin?" Wright asked. "I managed to access their main database," he said proudly. "And I discovered something big. The real reason they put humans in stasis instead of just eliminating us." Kevin pulled up a document with alien writing and an English translation. "It's not just about harvesting biological materials from us," he explained. "They're using our brains as processors, like biological computers. The neural activity from humans in stasis dreams is being harnessed to power their ships and technology." Greg leaned forward, shocked. "They're using us as batteries?" "More like CPUs," Kevin corrected. "Human brains create unique quantum patterns during dream states that the Council can't replicate with technology. They've been doing this with other species for thousands of years." Olivia's eyes widened as she connected the dots. "That's why they were so interested in our quantum drive technology. We achieved something they couldn't." "Exactly. Kevin nodded. And there's more. I found their research on human biology. The council species share a common vulnerability. Their neural systems can't filter certain wavelengths of quantum information. Something about our brains frightens them. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. For 5 years they had been fighting what seemed like an unwinnable war against vastly superior technology, but now, for the first time, they had discovered a potential weakness. Wright looked at her officers, her face showing new hope. This changes everything. If we can understand how human neural patterns affect them, we might have a weapon. Over the next few weeks, the Resistance put together their most ambitious plan yet. Small teams were dispatched to bases around the world, connecting with other resistance cells that had survived in secret. In the Resistance workshop, engineers worked day and night to modify captured alien technology. Unlike most subjugated species, humans proved remarkably adaptable at repurposing alien tech. Council weapons and communication devices were modified to work without their authentication systems. One evening, Greg found Natalie Reeves working late in the workshop. After escaping Detroit during the invasion, Natalie had become one of their best engineers, using her knowledge to reverse engineer alien power systems. "How's it coming?" Greg asked, watching her connect wires inside an alien communication device. Natalie wiped sweat from her forehead, leaving a smudge of grease. "I think I've got it working. This will let us broadcast to all the preservation facilities at once." Paul Garcia, who had become a Resistance field commander, entered carrying a crate of captured alien parts. "Supply team just got back from raiding the Colorado facility. Got everything on the shopping list." The plan they were working on was called Operation Awakening. It was audacious and dangerous. They would attempt to wake the billions of humans in stasis, not physically but mentally, creating a massive neural network of conscious human minds. If Olivia's theory was correct, this network could generate a quantum field that would be devastating to council neurobiology. The technology to do this came from a combination of the aliens' own stasis system and humanity's quantum drive research. "Are we sure this will work?" Greg asked during the final planning meeting. "We're talking about connecting billions of minds. The math checks out," Olivia replied, though her voice betrayed her nervousness. "The quantum link should establish a collective consciousness among all humans in stasis. Their combined neural patterns will create a field that council biology can't withstand." "And what happens to the people in stasis?" Wright asked, concerned. "They shouldn't feel anything beyond strange dreams," Olivia assured her. "Once we shut down the field, they'll return to normal stasis until we can physically free them." Kevin added, "I've programmed the system to send a specific message through the neural network, the truth about the council and instructions to focus their thoughts on breaking free." Wright nodded and looked at each person around the table. These were the best of humanity, fighters who had never given up hope despite overwhelming odds. "In 3 days, we launch Operation Awakening," she said solemnly. "This is our best chance to free Earth. Get some rest. We'll need everyone at their best." As Greg left the meeting, he looked at the faded photograph he kept in his pocket. Earth as seen from space, taken from the shuttle as he and Olivia escaped the Council flagship 5 years ago. The beautiful blue planet, still intact, but no longer free. "We're coming for you," he whispered to all those sleeping in the alien chambers. "Stay strong. The real fight is just beginning." The day of reckoning arrived exactly 5 years after the invasion began. In the Montana Resistance base, the mood was tense as final preparations were made. Everyone knew this mission would either free humanity or doom them forever. In a hidden chamber beneath the main base, Greg stood with Admiral Wright, Olivia, Kevin, and the core Resistance leadership. Before them hummed a strange device they called the Beacon, a combination of human quantum drive technology and modified alien systems. It looked like a metal pillar surrounded by spinning rings, glowing with blue energy. "Once we activate this," Wright said, her voice solemn, "there's no going back. Every council member on Earth and in orbit will be affected." She looked at her team. "Are we certain this is the right thing to do?" Greg looked at the Admiral steadily. "I've seen their files, ma'am. They've treated us like cattle. They planned to farm us until our species was nearly extinct. His fists clenched. I found records showing we're the 12th species they've done this to. Olivia stepped forward, checking the device's readings. The quantum link will only affect council species. Their brains can't handle the feedback loop from billions of human minds. She hesitated. It won't kill them, but it will change them. Forever. Wright nodded and placed her hand on the activation panel. For Earth, she said. For Earth, the others repeated. Wright pressed her palm down. The beacon hummed louder, the blue glow intensifying until it was painful to look at directly. The rings spun faster, creating a high-pitched whine. On screens around the room, they watched as power surged through the global network they'd spent years secretly building. Tiny transmitters hidden near stasis facilities worldwide activated, connecting to the chambers where billions of humans lay sleeping. Neural link established, Kevin reported, watching data flow across his screen. Connection to Chicago Stasis, Center online. New York online. Beijing online. He continued reading off locations as more facilities connected. We're reaching 50% of stasis chambers worldwide, 60%, 75%. Send the message, Wright ordered when they reached 80%. Kevin typed a command, and the beacon pulsed. Through the neural link, a message was sent to every sleeping human mind. You are not alone. Earth has been invaded. Focus your thoughts, break free. Together we are strong. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the readings on Kevin's screen began to spike. Neural activity increasing in all chambers, he said, excitement in his voice. They're responding. The beacon's glow changed from blue to a deep purple. The energy readings climbed higher and higher as billions of human minds, still dreaming, in stasis, became aware of each other. Though their bodies remained frozen, their thoughts linked together, forming a vast neural network unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Olivia monitored another screen. Quantum field forming, it's working. Outside the resistance base, Paul and Natalie commanded teams watching for alien response. Through their radios came excited reports. The aliens in the Denver facility just collapsed. Same in Chicago, they all just fell down at once. The patrol ships are falling out of the sky. They're crashing. On screens in the command center, they watched council ships in orbit lose control as their crews collapsed, overwhelmed by the quantum wave. On the planet, alien administrators and scientists fell to the ground, their minds bombarded by the collective human consciousness. The Council experienced something they had never encountered in their 50,000 years of galactic dominance. They were feeling humanity's entire emotional spectrum simultaneously. Rage at betrayal, grief for those lost, love for their world, hope despite overwhelming odds, and most importantly, an unrelenting determination to survive. For species that had evolved to suppress emotional response in favor of cold logic, the experience was cataclysmic. Keep the field stable, Wright ordered, as the beacon began to vibrate violently. How long can we maintain it? Maybe 12 hours before the system burns out, Olivia answered, working to stabilize the energy flow. The power requirements are enormous. That should be enough, Greg said, watching the screens showing aliens collapsing worldwide. For 12 long hours, the Resistance maintained the quantum field. Teams were dispatched to secure key facilities and begin freeing humans from stasis. The Council ships in orbit drifted powerless, their crews incapacitated by the neural assault. When the beacon finally overloaded in a shower of sparks, the quantum field collapsed. But the damage to the Council was already done. The aliens began to wake up, but they were no longer the same. The emotionless, logical beings who had arrived to harvest humanity were gone. In their place were creatures forever changed by direct contact with the collective human consciousness. 1 month later, Greg stood as Earth's representative before the full Galactic Council on their homeworld, the first human ever to do so. The council chamber was enormous, a vast dome with seating for thousands of alien representatives. As Greg walked to the central podium, the chamber fell completely silent. He looked around at the assembled aliens. Their eyes were different now. No longer cold and calculating but showing depth and emotion that hadn't existed before. "Humanity does not seek revenge for what you did to us," Greg stated, his voice carried by translators to every corner of the chamber. "That was never our intention. What we did was not an attack. It was communication in the only language you left us capable of speaking." He paused, looking directly at the council leaders. "You now understand us as we understand ourselves. You have felt our pain, our joy, our love, and our anger. This is not the end of our relationship with the galactic community, but a true beginning." The council leaders, their once emotionless faces now showing complexities of feeling, voted unanimously to revoke all harvesting protocols for developing species. Earth would be restored, its people awakened from stasis, and humanity would join the Galactic Council not as subjects but as equals. As Greg left the chamber, the council eldest approached him privately. The ancient alien moved slowly, supported by a floating device. Its skin was pale gray, almost translucent with age. "For 50,000 years we traveled the stars," the ancient alien said, its voice trembling with newfound emotion. "We encountered thousands of species, cataloged millions of worlds. But we never truly understood what it meant to be alive until we experienced humanity's collective consciousness." The elder's eyes, now capable of showing feeling, looked at Greg with what could only be described as wonder. "You have given us something we never knew we lacked," it continued. "Emotion, connection, understanding. For the first time in our history, we can truly empathize with other beings." Greg simply nodded. "That's the thing about humans. We never just survive. We transform whatever tries to destroy us." Back on Earth, the great work of awakening humans from stasis had begun. It would take years to safely revive everyone, but already cities were coming back to life. Alien technology, now freely shared, helped rebuild what had been damaged. The news spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The species from the insignificant blue planet had done the impossible. They had changed the unchangeable Galactic Council, not through superior firepower or technology, but through the sheer force of their collective humanity. Earth's revenge hadn't been destruction but transformation, and it left the galaxy forever changed. Admiral Wright stood with Greg, Olivia, Kevin, Paul, and Natalie on a hilltop overlooking the rebuilt city of Denver. In the distance, humans and aliens worked together to dismantle a preservation facility, carefully removing people from stasis. "Do you think they've really changed?" Natalie asked, watching a group of alien children playing with human children in a new park. Greg smiled, remembering the fear in the council eldest's eyes. Not fear of humans, but fear of returning to a life without emotion. "Yes," he said confidently. "I think they have. They've learned what it means to be human." "And what's that?" Paul asked. Greg looked at his friends, the people who had fought beside him for 5 long years, never losing hope even when it seemed impossible. To feel, to connect, to transform. And most importantly, he said, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, to never, ever give up.